Hello everyone, how's it going? Today I want to show you guys what to do when your crested gecko loses its tail. It is not a big deal, but there are some things that you have to do to ensure that the crested gecko stays healthy and that there are no dangers to it and that there are no complications. So last night, one of our females here, which is a pretty normal female and she's really calm, so that's why I'm holding her. I know that I'm not stressing her out, but usually you do not want to hold a crested gecko that just lost its tail. But yeah, this girl last night lost his tail. Apparently, apparently he was a little bit too hard on her and he probably bit her tail off and then it fell off. So, what should you do? You should probably grab the tail. What I do is I just put it in a bag and I freeze it because maybe in the future I want to do something with it. I'm not sure. I know that I like how it looks. You might not see it in the bag, but it looks pretty cool how the little star finishes there. But the most important thing here is not the tail, it is the gecko. So what to do when your crested gecko loses its tail? So as you see, it is an open wound, okay? So you want to make sure that you're going to close that safely. You don't want it to get infected. So what should you do? First, you're going to separate the geckos. You're going to set up a new tank for the affected crested gecko. So these two were paired, they were breeding. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna separate them and I should be patient for her to recover before I attempt to pair them up again. The main thing that could go wrong with this, as in any open wound, is that it could get infected and it could damage the overall health of the crested gecko. If an infection spreads too much, it could even kill the crested gecko. So we want to minimize the risk of infection when we have an open wound as big as this one. Smaller crested geckos will drop their tail and they will regenerate the little nub at the end. They will do really fast. Now, older crested geckos have more skin and more tissue to repair than a small crested gecko, and also their growth rate is definitely going to be slower than a baby crested gecko. So for adults, it is okay to give them some treatment. What I usually do is I just put some iodine and I'm going to show you guys how I do it. Okay, so what I usually do is pretty simple. We grab our iodine bottle, or yeah, this is in Spanish. Poidona ayudada. So what I'm gonna do is basically just press a little bit. Hopefully I'll get a drop right where that is. And yes, the drop is falling through my fingers, but I know that the drop is also staying there. So I'm gonna leave that drop for like 5 minutes here on her, and that is going to prevent any bacteria from spreading or from infecting the wound. As I mentioned, it is an open wound and it does bleed when they drop the tail, so you want to be careful about it. And yes, it is common, but there are some complications to it. So even if you do not have to freak out or you do not have to take your crested gecko to the vet because they dropped their tail, it is good to follow a procedure and it is good to follow some things so that the crested gecko stays as healthy as possible. As you see, she is still calm. This didn't hurt her. And she is healthy, she is plump, she is right now 52 grams without a tail. So she's definitely breeding size. The male that did this is barely 39 grams. So he's a smaller male. He's old enough though, he has been paired up before. Before this season he was 42 and he has gone down to 39. But it is fine, he's still eating, he's still drinking, and he's still healthy. He is just a little bit focused on breeding, so it is what happens. The males will often lose up to 5 grams, and if they lose more than that, you should separate them and have them eat alone so that they focus on eating and they recover a little bit, and then you can pair them back together so that they can breed again. But it is important to monitor the weight. So after she dropped the tail, I measured the weight because I want to make sure that she is still gaining weight and she's not losing a lot of weight. So she is 52 grams after losing the tail. She's healthy to keep breeding, but for now she is fine and she's one of our newest breeders. So we're really excited to have her. She has a lot of spots. I think she's gonna be a great pair with Rodrigo, and it is really unfortunate that right away when we got her, she just lost her tail. We got her a few weeks ago and she has been quarantined and then she has been paired up. And I feel bad for her because she lost her tail. Now, as I said, this is not going to make her lay worse eggs. It's just not going to affect her breeding abilities. It is maybe going to affect her movement for a few weeks until she gets used to moving properly. I've noticed that with some geckos, they lose their tail and then they don't really know how to walk properly. Like they're more stiff, but it is fine. They get used to it after a few weeks, and then they learn again how to walk. I mean, they don't really learn again, but they learn how to do it without a tail. As you know, crested geckos don't regrow their tail, but they do regrow a little nub, so maybe I could keep you guys posted on how she regrows that little open wound that is right there. We had another gecko drop his tail recently, and I'm gonna show you what he looks like after 3 weeks of eating properly and being housed properly and regrowing that tail properly. Also, now it is probably time to remove some of that iodine. And she does not really like this, which is normal because it is an open wound. Okay? But it is fine. It is not a lot of iodine. So we're just going to remove it. And I do this whenever it's more like pinkish. I do it once or twice a day. And then when it stops being pink and it gets more like a pale color, which means that it is starting to regrow and get a healthier, then I just won't put any iodine because it is more dry and it doesn't look this shiny. So when it is more dry, there are less risks of infection and bacteria coming in. So then I don't put this iodine after it is not shining anymore. It usually takes 4 or 5 days. It is not the same thing than tail rot. We are not treating bacteria, we are preventing it. So yeah, this is pretty much what I want to show you about Marmalade today. She is going to go in a different enclosure. She's going to have her own hut, her lay box, her water dish, her food dish, different ornamentations. So this is going to be the best way to not stress her out more, and so that we can regrow her tissue more healthy and that she is more calm and she's happier overall, okay? So I'm going to show you what Carl looks like after losing his tail after 3 weeks of regenerating that lost tail. Okay, so this is Carl. He is fired down. He gets really red, really nice red when he is fired up. And as you can see, he lost his tail as well. Okay, he is a little skittish. He was like this before losing the tail. Can you stand still, buddy? Okay, and I don't know if you guys can see, there is like a little pink right there. And as you can see, it is starting to come out a little bit. So that is like the new growth is starting to come out a little bit. He is eventually going to develop a small nub that is almost like an attempt of a tail. It is like a frog butt. It is pretty cute. But yeah, crested geckos do not regrow their tail. So they just grow a little bit of tissue, and that is going to be enough for them to have the wound closed and treated and healthy, and they're not gonna need this tail for surviving. They just don't grow it at all after they drop it. Now this is Keith. He also lost a tail. We bought him without a tail, so he's been with us for a few months already, and you can see there is a little bit of growth there. Okay, Keith, stand still. Okay, buddy. Or you wanna say hi to the camera? Don't jump on the camera. Okay. Now come here. Okay. So you can see that there is a little bit of growth. Okay, stand still. And don't look at the testes. Look at the little peak. Come on, buddy. Come on. Okay. And also for a crested gecko that has just dropped the tail, it is usually better to keep them in paper towels because it is an open wound, and you want to make sure that it stays free of anything that could go in the wound and maybe infect it more. Like dirt could maybe damage that wound, or it could maybe carry some bacteria or spores from a fungus or something, and it could infect the wound. So we want to avoid that, so we use paper towels. Once a gecko drops their tail, you should treat the gecko with maybe iodine or neosporin and treat the gecko. Make sure that it is fine, make sure that the gecko stays healthy, it does not get infected. I've never had any problems with a tail drop, I've never had to take them to the vet. Usually, in most cases, you're not going to have to take them to the vet. Even if you do the worst combinations ever, like even if you have them in a improper tank with dirt and it is moldy and you're still breeding after the tail drop, in most cases they're gonna know how to heal that wound by themselves and they're not gonna need your help. But I like to do a little extra and I like to help them so that they are fine and I know that they're healthy. So we separate the gecko, we put them in paper towels, we treat with iodine or neosporin, we monitor them. It is going to take 1 to 2 months for the open wound to heal and close, and you want to make sure that it is closing properly, as we have been saying in this video. You don't want an infection, so we need to monitor it. And then lastly, when that gecko has healed, you can go back to normal procedures. You can go back to breeding it, you can go back to handling it more, but you definitely want to avoid handling a little bit. It's going to be stressed and your hands are probably going to be dirty, so it can also increase the risk of infection. So having said that, I hope this video helped a little bit. I'm sorry for all of you that have had a tail loss, but your gecko is going to be fine with it. And in the wild, most crested geckos end up losing the tail. And yeah, if you found this video helpful, please let me know. Please comment or subscribe or share it. And I'll see you in the next video.